I want to live in a world where it's not 7 people making decisions for the rest of us. That seems like an untenable situation.
Hi, I'm Nicholas Thompson, the CEO of The Atlantic. And this is The Most Interesting Thing in AI, a podcast produced by Rethink, The Atlantic's creative marketing studio, in collaboration with PwC, a leader in helping organizations use AI. Right now, the way that most AI works is a mystery. At least it is to users. You go to your AI window, you type out a prompt, you get the response. You don't know where that information came from. And some models will cite their sources, but even then, you don't know why they chose this answer or that one. If you use a Chinese LLM, you might wonder, are there topics that the model won't tell me about? Or if you use an ad-supported model, you might wonder, am I getting the best answer? Or just the one that someone paid for me to see? Right now, it's hard to know. Our next guest wants to change that. His name is Raffi Krikorian, and he's currently the CTO of Mozilla. That's the company that builds the Firefox web browser and many other products. I've known Raffi a long time. He used to work at our parent company, the Emerson Collective, and we worked together on an AI project years ago. Raffi's a proponent of open source software, where the source code is freely available for anyone to modify. Firefox is open source. You can go to GitHub right now and see all the code that makes it run. There are a lot of reasons why projects go open source. Some of it's ideological, for people who believe in the spirit of the open web. Sometimes there's a business case for it. But one of the strongest reasons for posting your code is trust. The thinking is, when users can see the code themselves, they know exactly how an app works, and they know it's not doing anything it isn't supposed to do. Raffi wants to take that same approach to AI. He wants open source models that let you see what's going on behind the scenes. So you can answer that question, why did it give me this response? And that's a big deal. Right now, companies are in an arms race building these models, and most of them don't really want to show their competitors or their users how they did it. So I sat down with Raffi to learn more and to hear about the benefits and the risks of open source AI. Here's our conversation. Raffi Krikorian, welcome to The Most Interesting Thing in AI.
Nicholas Thompson, thank you for having me.
So good to see you here, Raffi. I've got a lot to ask you about. But first, I want to start. You've had a remarkable career in lots of ways, in part because I think you've worked at some of the craziest organizations in the world. You go from Twitter to Uber to the DNC, and then nice, calm, and peace at the Emerson Collective. But tell me, which of those three, of Twitter, Uber, and the DNC, where you had senior jobs or you came in to do really important things at tumultuous times, which was the most dramatic?
Wait, dramatic or traumatic?
Dramatic, with a D, with a D.
I mean, they all had their own things. Like, I think for me, like my career has mostly been about trying to figure out how to use tech to make better things happen in the world. But it was also like self-servingly for me to learn as much as I possibly can. So like, Twitter was crazy because that's where I learned how to do hypergrowth and hyperscale. Like, I started out as an engineer on the team and then I left having 600, 700 people working for me. Uber was obviously insane. I knew nothing about robotics coming in. So I learned a lot about robotics and I learned a lot about like physical interactions with the world. And then the DNC was just kind of like a calling. Like I just felt like I really needed to do it. I mean, if I really had to choose one.
You went into the DNC after the Russia hack.
I went into the DNC. They hired me to clean up the Russia hack. Tom Perez would talk to me all the time about like, I need you to fix my cyber problem. Of course, it's not just a cyber problem, but if I had to really choose one, I mean, the DNC, like I've gone from places where the tech people are king effectively to the DNC where I'm like banging on a door being like, please let me in. Like right. I think I can add value here kind of thing.
Of those 600 people who work for you at Twitter, how many are still there?
Zero. Almost quite literally zero. Like, I think the number is probably, you can count it on 2 hands at this point, but like a lot of them left right before Elon joined, a lot of them left in first wave after Elon joined, but very few are there.
There's something really interesting about your work at Twitter where you build this thing and you're building it for idealistic purposes and people can get together, can bring about democracy. It's the Arab Spring moment. And then it turns into this other thing,
sure.
Right? It turns into a rage machine. And there are wonderful things about Twitter.
Sure.
Go to it every day and look for AI papers and insights, but there are terrible things about Twitter. And from my understanding from having talked to you in the past is that you started to realize while you were there the way it could go haywire. which is important for anybody building tech. So tell me about those realizations, how they affected you, and what you think of them now.
I mean, let me start with some of the great things about Twitter back in the day. Like, we all went in with this idealistic notion that like you can flatten the world. Like, I'm pretty sure it was Dick Costlow's idea of just like, if you flatten the world, you can talk to anybody. Like, wouldn't that be an amazing thing? And at the time, sure, yeah, that sounded great. And, we started doing some fairly important things back then of just like, obviously Arab Spring was around the time that I joined, but we worked on questions just like how would we not necessarily circumvent Chinese censorship, but if someone managed to get past the Chinese firewall, how do you make sure that something like a Twitter is there on the other side so they can access as much information as possible? So I mean, that kind of stuff was amazing to work on. But when you started to make editorial choices, just like exactly what are we amplifying? How do we actually do content moderation? Like, what does it mean to be, on the first pass, just like a support call member to all the way to a person who has to do trust and safety, just started watching the evolution of Twitter through that. I mean, there's a reason why these days I don't call it Twitter anymore. In fact, like I held on really long for calling it Twitter as long as I could. But like I've even had—
You now call it X.
I now call it X. For like a year after Elon took it over, I kept on being like, it's not X, it's Twitter. But now it's just a fundamentally different product. And it's because while we were trying to fight the good fight on all the different things, and billion wrong mistakes every single day, frankly. But now like all those like attempts are even being unwound, and watching that start play out is like why I've decided now I just call it X. It's like such a fundamentally different thing.
Now put yourself in the mind of somebody building one of the giant AI platforms, because you're building Twitter and it does this thing that we've never had before. It flattens the world. It lets us all talk to each other. It seems great. And then maybe not so great, right? There's a reason why all 600 of the people who reported to you are gone. Now these people are building these tools that are way more powerful, right? And there's a prospect that those companies will be completely changed, just as Twitter has completely changed as X, that this thing they're trying to build will be turned on its head. What lessons do you have for them as they think through what they're building now based on your work at Twitter?
Yeah, so like when I joined Twitter, I reported to a guy named Alex Payne. He's the guy who first wrote the original Twitter API. And then I took it over and I iterated from there. But like Alex, I think on my first day, literally had a white paper on his screen that he was working on, which is like, how do we make the Twitter API a protocol? Like, how do we make it open for the world to then like plug into? Then it can be beyond just Twitter. I think about that a lot right now because I was also there, like I built out the API, me and a guy named Ryan Sarver, like we had all the mobile clients come on. We did all these things. And then I watched when we turned the API off on how all those clients sort of died off. Like none of them could exist anymore.
So you think there was like a foundational error when you turned off the API access at Twitter that then sort of put it on a trajectory to become this thing that was very different from the thing you had imagined?
I think that's one of the things, because I think when you get, I think turning off the Twitter API, Twitter is still a very centralized place. Like we are still controlling the servers. Like it's all the content still needs to route through us, but we allowed for innovation on the edge. We allowed for people to do all this crazy stuff around it. But when you turned off the Twitter API, then we got to a place that we're like going into full on, we control the platform mode. And I think that's the lesson that we should take away for the AI companies. They think we're in like this highly concentrated place right now. There's like, 7 like plausible places that could build an AGI right now?
Yeah.
That seems nuts. Like in the grand scheme of things, that seems nuts. And so like, how do we decentralize that? Because I'm worried the same things might play out.
What year was it you turned off the Twitter API?
That's a good question. I want to say it was maybe 2014.
Because I remember reading about it.
Yeah.
And I had a crying baby. So, but I remember reading that news thinking, this seems like a fundamental betrayal. I used, I don't know, Tweetbird or TweetDeck
exactly,
or
Twitterific, all this
whatever
stuff.
I was using. And suddenly I was like, wait, I can't use this anymore. I had to go on TV and talk about it. I was very upset at you, Raffi, even though I'd never met you.
That set the basis of our relationship ever since.
All right, so that's an extremely interesting answer because it reminds everybody working at these companies that there are these foundational moments that can fork this project in an important way. And it also takes you to your current work. So jumping ahead, you go from the DNC, you work at the Emerson Collective, you and I work together. We try to fix conversations in America through Speakeasy. We don't entirely succeed, though we do build an amazing product together. And then you go to Mozilla. So tell me what drew you into Mozilla, which I think probably ties very closely to the answer you just gave me.
No, I mean, I think we're in this moment with AI. Like, I think we're actually, like, I'll give you a bunch of different things. I think we're in a place where we are careening toward only having a number of AGIs that I can count on my hand.
Well, you just said 7. How many fingers do you have, Raffi?
Yeah. Plus or minus 2. That doesn't seem good for all of us, right? Like, because I think we're going to be in that world where, like, intelligence might not be on my side, it might be on someone else's side. And if the intelligence is this thing that's supposed to, like, enable us and make us better and allow us to do crazier and crazier, more ambitious things as a society, I don't want it on someone else's side. I want 7 billion AGIs. I want us all to have an AGI in our pocket. So I'm worried about that. I'm also worried about things like just the way that AI is being deployed right now. Like, I watch my kids struggle with this. Like, they struggle with it in the way that I didn't struggle with a calculator, even though that's probably the last time we had this conversation, right? So, like, I'm getting calls from teachers at school of, like, my kids are using ChatGPT to write their essays, and I don't have a good way to explain to them, like, what good friction means. I don't have a good way to explain to them. I love all this technology, don't get me wrong. So I feel that, like, someone needs to start figuring out, like, how do we build this type of technology that's on the side of people?
Wait, you feel like your kids are using AI models that you can't trust, that you can't explain to them, and that you can't configure to maximize their education?
I feel that they are starting to use AI systems based on an incentive model that's being created by these 7 companies, 5 to 7 companies.
Yeah.
And I want them to start using AI with an incentive model that's on their side, not on someone else's side.
And that's because you don't trust these specific companies, or you just think in general this is such a powerful technology that it should be controlled by more than 7?
I think that these type of technologies should be figured out how to be controlled by local communities, by everyone in the world, not by 7 people. Like, I think, when the India AI Summit moment of Dario and Sam refusing to hold hands, which is one of the most bizarre things I've seen in a while. But, like, that should be a wake-up call in some ways, that, like, this such a foundational and strong and amazing technology is being run by a set of leaders who are fighting amongst themselves. Like, why should we be shrapnel in that kind of fighting?
Well, at least they're not, like, holding hands and merging, because then there'd be 6.
Then there'd be 6. That's fair.
But wait, but let's get into this a little bit more, because you can just tell your kids how to use it. You can say, use the study and learn mode in ChatGPT and ask it these questions, but not these questions. You have options inside of it. You can turn off memory. Like, why do you need a whole different set of models for your kids?
So yeah, no, options kind of exist, but not great ones, not like foundationally different ones. And it's because it's just an incentive model around this economy that we're building. And so, like, I want a world where we have, like, a cottage industry of AI. So, like, I can actually find the one that's on my side, or I can rapidly build the one that's going to be on my side. I think that, like, this high concentration of both power, capital, talent, all these things are causing us to move in a very unidirectional direction. And I think we need to figure out how to, like, unwind that.
But explain this. I mean, Raffi, you love the tech industry, you love tech products, and tech is monopolies all the way up, all the way down, right? It's kind of because that's how tech works, right? It's, you have increasing returns to scale, you have massive startup costs. There are reasons why these monopolies exist. Do you actually think that AI could be any different?
So I think the Firefox example is a good one. So Firefox only has a couple 100 million users using it, but that turns out to be enough to force an entire conversation on how the web operates. So, like, in the 1990s, when, like, Internet Explorer was trying to take over the web, developers were building for Internet Explorer. They weren't building for the web in general. They were building for this one single platform. And when you needed to build for that platform, you would license technology from Microsoft. You would build it for Internet Explorer. You'd talk to that community of folks. But then the rebels kind of showed up, and they started building, they took code base that came from Netscape that was recently open sourced and made it into Firefox. And Firefox then allowed you to then have a conversation of just, like, what do I want the web to look like? Because this is not controlled by a single company anymore. And that's what turns out to be the web today. Anyone can build whatever they want on the web with whatever standards they want to use on the web. And we can force that conversation of what openness should look like. And I think we can do the same thing with AI.
So your argument is Firefox, small market share, what is it, 3% market share, 4%? But significant, right? Those are big enough numbers, right? And so they can make a change, and it can force a change in Internet Explorer, Chrome. But a huge percentage of your money comes from Google, right?
Sure.
Google pays you to be the default search engine.
So right now, the vast majority of our money it comes from the search deal that comes from Google, but we're starting to diversify our revenue sources because we think this moment is so important that we need to be beyond just that single source. So I do think that like people are starting to pay to use things like Thunderbird. People are starting to pay to use things that the Mozilla AI team is starting to generate. Like we're starting to find these other sources. We're behind in doing that. We needed to figure this out years ago, but best start today than tomorrow.
I work in media. We're all about diversified revenue sources. Here you are, you're Raffi, you're the CTO, and you're like, we got to break up the monopolies. We got to have many more AI companies. The big technology companies aren't going to be on your side, and yet you're funded by Google. How does that ever feel weird? Does Google ever say, hey, Mozilla, will you guys stop saying that stuff?
Well, I mean, it can always be better, right? Like we can always try to figure out, but like in our defense, I think Google too wants an open web. Like Google depends on the web being open, that they can fully index it. They can fully do all these things because they want to put advertising on it. They've created the best business model in the history of capitalism based on the fact that the web is open.
Yeah.
And so like the way I feel good at night is that like Firefox existence is the reason why the web is open. And so Google is paying us to continue doing that. That's fine for now.
It's complicated and tangled, but it seems to be working all right. So now let's get to this big question. So you want there to be more AI companies. You want AI to be on the side of the people. How does Mozilla do that? Like, why is Mozilla, like, shouldn't you go and work for DeepSeek, Raffi, or shouldn't you go and be the head engineer at Mistral? Like, why go to Mozilla?
So yes, I think I could go work at any one of these companies, but what I think we need to do is enable it so more people can figure out different places to plug into the ecosystem. So I think right now, I don't want to rely on a single company's altruism to make AI a better place for all of us. So I want to figure out ways to spark entire ecosystems. Now, that being said, there already are ecosystems, right? Like Hugging Face is doing their thing, Mistral is doing their thing, AI2 is doing their thing, ETH Zurich is doing that. There are lots of people who are starting to play specifically in a model space, but there are other parts in the space to play. And I think what the role of Mozilla is to figure out how to like sew this all together. Like, why do we need to like force it to be created? Because I think, going back to your previous question, there's a lot of money going into the space right now. And I think we're racing to a point that we might get escape velocity before we can fix the problem. So normally I want market forces to go fix this, and maybe market forces can fix this, but I think we need to like nudge it super hard in a direction toward openness and then let the market go.
Just so everybody knows exactly what you're saying. So there are going to be 7 companies, maybe there'll be 6, maybe there'll be 8, and they're going to build closed source models where they pick the training data, they design it in an office that has a security door on it. They put it out in the world. You get some toggles, but really they control it all. You want the way we use AI to have much more intervention by the community at every step,
at every single level
of the way.
Yeah. So I think like there's either 4 or 5 layers, depending on how you want to look at it. But I'll start first at the compute layer. So this is where the hardware goes right now, mostly NVIDIA. And I'll give an example in a second. There's the model layer, things like you would think about like GPT, or whether you think about Anthropic's Claude. There's a layer on top of that, which is data, what powers all these models. And then there's the developer tooling. Right now, if you use the OpenAI API, so you're a developer, I want to write some AI-enabled code. I go to my computer, I pip install OpenAI. All it does is it calls a single API call, and all that rest of the stuff is abstracted away. Like OpenAI manages that all for you. Another example of what closed stack looked like would be Google. Google actually does it all the way down, right? Like they have their TPUs, their tensor processing units at the hardware level. They put that in their data centers, sometimes on their phones. They have their own models, whether it's Gemini, et cetera. They have their own data sets they scrape from the web, and they have their own applications that developers can build on top. I want to make sure that we have open, accessible options for every single one of those layers so that people can mix and choose. People can do whatever they want.
And an open, accessible option means it's free, or it means you can modify it? What does it mean?
Great question. I think right now it means that you can modify it, but more specifically, it means that you could walk away from it. So right now, if you use one of these models, or one of these platforms, you're getting fairly locked into it. Like, it's really easy to use. It's starting to extract data from you. It's building memory. Like, if you try as a regular everyday user to switch from ChatGPT to Claude, It's actually quite hard to do. Like I've built up a lot of context inside of ChatGPT that I can't just move. And so I think about that a lot when it comes to like how to build open models, because like I want to be able to have choice in every single layer. Like an enterprise developer thinks about this right now when they build on the cloud. So like you don't build to AWS specifically anymore. You usually build at some abstraction layer. And it's so when the AWS rep comes and tells me he wants to jack my price, I can be like, well, I'm leaving tomorrow.
Right.
Like, so I want the same kind of thing to happen when it comes to AI.
Okay. So you want people to be able to move from model A to model B, but you also want there to be many, many more models. But this isn't just a question of data portability. It's a question all the way down the stack. For those folks who aren't developers, what is developer tooling? What is closed developer tooling? What is open developer tooling? How do you get the open stuff?
Yeah. So right now, if you were to use, say, I want to build something on OpenAI or I want to build something on Claude, I can write one line of code that then calls a data center that OpenAI or Anthropic manages, and then they spin up a massive model across many computers, and they run that for me and return the result to me. So I have no control over anything that happens after that one line of code.
Right. The nice thing is it just works. They handle problems.
Exactly.
If there's something that goes horribly wrong, you can sue them.
Yeah, exactly. And billing works fine. I can hold someone accountable. I can do all these things, but I have no control.
Right.
So it means that like if it doesn't quite behave the way I want, or if they change the terms of service on me, I have no recourse. Like that's just the deal I've been given.
Right.
Like I call that the renter mentality. I want to live in a world where instead like I have control over that. So like I want to be able to call still maybe one line of code, but I want to be able to call any model I want. I want to use any memory provider I want, any storage provider I want. And if the model doesn't behave the way I want it, I want to be able to tweak it. Or if the model is costing me too much money for the kind of thing I want to do, I want to be able to switch it. So I think the developer tooling allows me to have that plug and play functionality.
Is there open source developer tooling right now?
There is. I mean, there's lots of people who are building this. You know, Mozilla is one of them. Our entire company, Mozilla AI, is building something they call the Any LLM platform. It's a word jumble.
Yeah.
But what it means is that like you can plug in anything you want into this LLM platform that you can then configure any way you want. It's meant to be really easy for developers to do it.
So you have like information and API calls from any LLM flowing into this box, and then you can control anything in the box.
And I can control anything I want in the box. I can have my own guardrail provider. I can have my own backend model. I can call my own data center instead of someone else's data center. I can basically configure it any way I want to. So like we're one of the people doing it, but there are lots of people.
So you can run your Python scripts, you can call this information, you can modify the information inside the box. You can't modify what goes into the box because that's proprietary, that's owned by the companies. Okay, so that's the developer tools, that's level one. The second level is the data.
Correct.
So this is important. So what do you mean there?
Yeah, so I mean it on two different levels. So the first level is that right now the contract that most model providers think they have with the web is that data is free. That they can, I mean, you've seen this at the Atlantic, like they can scrape whatever data they want and train whatever models they want based on that. A lot of people are suing them, but that's the position that they're taking right now.
Right, it's just like a thief, right? If we can get in the house, we can take from the house.
Yeah, so I want to create, and Mozilla has a marketplace for provenance-enabled and ethically sourced data sets. So like there are lots of data that isn't on the web right now for this exact reason. People don't want it just taken from them.
Yeah.
But if we can provide them a monetization path that they know they can still have control, that would be kind of amazing. So the Mozilla Data Collective is meant to create that marketplace.
But it's not a free marketplace. It's just a marketplace where we know what the provenance is.
Yes. It's not meant to be free. So like we're in conversations with every single radio station on the planet right now. They have archives going back for as long as they've been existing of transcripts and audio data in all these languages around the world. What if they could make that available and actually get paid for it?
Because there's this interesting like tension. Like part of what makes open source amazing is that it's free, right? You can put Linux anywhere. But now the open source advocates are arguing that data should be paid for, and the closed models are saying like, hey, let's just take it for free.
Well, I mean, like open source stuff has always been paid by someone, right? In the grand scheme of things. So like, you know, Alibaba releases Quen, but they're still paying for all these GPUs. They're still doing all these investments. Like the open sourceness of it is because they want to contribute to an ecosystem, then also get benefits back from it. So all I'm saying is that the people providing data should be part of that ecosystem as well. Like if their data goes in, they should get some kind of remuneration beyond it because the money's going to be paid for it somewhere.
Like maybe if they want to put their data in for free, they should at least be asked.
And they can have credit for it, attribution to it, and the ability to revoke it later if they want to.
Right. No, and this obviously is dear to my heart in media where, you know, we woke up one morning like, wait, all of our data was taken in violation of our terms of service and in violation probably of our robots.txt rules and dumped into these models, which are now building products that compete with us. I don't know. That's great.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Please write like Nick Thompson.
Right. And so you can make a thing that is like me, trained on my data, for which we weren't compensated, right? That is a big battle, where some of the AI companies we partner with, some of the AI companies we're in litigation with, some of the AI companies we're figuring that out. But we also have resources and we have lawyers at the Atlantic, whereas lots of people with data don't have that, and they can't even tell.
This goes down to even small marginalized communities, right? Like one of my favorite people in the world, a guy named Manu Chopra, runs an organization called Karya, which basically is trying to figure out how to source Indic languages for the big AI models, but provide compensation and provide licensing terms to all the people who are actually doing it for like these communities that are only a couple million people, but they speak this language kind of thing.
That's so interesting, right? Like you kind of don't want your data put into the AI model because you want to be compensated for it.
But
you also do want it in the AI model so the AI model will speak that language and your kids can use the darn AI model.
Exactly. So we're building a marketplace. I think that's one end of the question. The other end of the question is what happens to our personal data? So like, I don't know about you, but like I ask these AI models things that I don't necessarily want anyone else to know that I'm asking it kind of thing. Like, I have the same conversation I might have with my therapist with an AI model kind of thing.
I just uploaded like an analysis of my digestive system this morning. I'm not even kidding. That like I'd sent in like a hair sample to some company that had read my book and they're like, hey, we want to help you train. I was like, this is weird. Help me figure it out.
So I think personal data is also quite important that we need to solve in this. Like, I want to live in a world where I know my data is safe and it's not just protected by a privacy policy. I want it like architecturally safe.
For the AI companies, the data that's fed into it is super valuable.
Exactly.
And we really don't think about the fact that it's trained on all this stuff. So they have this notice Anthropic, right? They're supposed to be the ethical ones
guys
here. They changed their rules without really telling anybody so they could train on your data.
I mean, this is actually my point. It's just like you don't want to necessarily trust privacy policies. You don't want to trust documentation. I want to trust architecture.
Yeah.
I want to know that it's built in a way that you can't extract my data. Like, I think those are the fundamental things we got to fix.
Right. Okay. So now you want to fix the data level. So now the model level. The model level, you want the models to be open source.
I want the models to be open source.
So what does that mean? Because as many people know, that is like one of the most contested questions in AI. What is open source AI?
Yeah, so I think...
You can start bar fights with this question.
100%. I think, there's a one fork in the road that goes into two ways here. So on one hand, we can have the conversation about open weights. So I can publish my model in a way that anyone can download it, anyone can use it on their own terms, and then potentially anyone can train off it and fine-tune it and do whatever they want.
So just to clarify, just make sure I got this right. Open weights are, I've got a model, I've got a trillion computers, I feed in all this data. At the end, there's this gigantic number string of, billions of numbers, and that represents all the weights and all the knowledge. Open weights means I can give you that box with a billion numbers in it, but I don't tell you what I trained on.
But you don't tell me the data.
I don't tell you how I fine-tuned it. I don't tell you how I ran it. I don't tell you the algorithms. I don't tell you any of the really important stuff. I just give you the output. So I'm a chef and I'm giving you the stew, but I haven't told you how I made it.
Correct. And so I think there's one train of thought, which is like open weights might be good enough.
And that's what Llama used to do.
That's what Llama used to do. That's what Qwen does right now. So if I were to download
Is that what DeepSeek does?
That's what DeepSeek does right now. Most of the not all of the models, if you go to a place like Hugging Face and download it, you're getting an open weight model. You're just getting the weights. I want to be able to run the model on my computer.
And that's cool, but it's not complete.
Yeah, I think it's a good starting place. I want to be a pragmatist about it. I think it's a good starting place. It enables a bunch of people to build on top of it and use it under their own terms. But someone did a whole analysis of kidney donations based on models.
Yeah.
And so kidney donations is a very complicated process. Like, who actually gets a kidney? It's not just a matter of standing in line for it. There's actually an ethical decision that needs to be made. And so there's a whole paper based on taking a whole set of LLMs and asking them, who would you give the kidney to? Most of the Western models went one way. The Chinese models went a different way. And so the question is, why?
Right.
Even though these are all open weight models, I can download them and run them, but you can't ask and answer why. Right. And so I think that's where we need to get to truly open source. I need to understand the data. I need to understand how it was trained. I need to understand how it was fine-tuned. I need to understand all the stuff around this model, especially if it's going to be making these type of big societal decisions. Now, I might not need that for a model that I'm using to like code my next iOS app, right? Like in a grand scheme of things, but I need it if I'm going to like trust a judicial system to a model, like those kind of things.
Or if you're going to give away your kidney, which, you have to figure out who it's going to go to. We'll be back in a minute with more from Raffi Krikorian.
AI, literally.
Exactly. And AI. Got it?
Everyone has an opinion on AI, but are any of them right for your enterprise?
AI.
Cut through the AI noise with AI solutions from PwC, so you can solve the business problems that matter most. PwC.
I've always assumed that one of the reasons why is that none of them want to reveal the data they trained on because they stole it all. And they know that if they open it up, they're going to just be lawsuit after lawsuit.
I don't have a good answer to that because
Do you think I'm right?
Because I think you're probably correct. It's just like there is so much contention on that data layer because there is no ethical marketplace. There is no all this other stuff that's needed. So I believe that to be it, but no one's going to tell you that to your face.
Right. But eventually, I mean, there's like a California data transparency law that's going through. Like, we might start to learn more about this question.
I think there's also opportunities to do this on the smaller models, not the bigger models.
And anyway, the philosophy of the big AI companies was, we're going to steal everything and we're going to build our models and we're going to hide it as long as possible. And by the time we're asked to reveal it, either we'll have gone bankrupt because this thing won't work, or we'll have made so much money that we'll just pay the lawsuits. And clearly, they're now at the point where they've paid so much money they can just pay the lawsuits.
And you were going to allow them to make the 6 AGIs, 7 AGIs that rule the world.
Well, and that's the other complexity. If you win here, then their market share goes down, right? If there end up being 25 AGIs, then maybe they don't have the money to pay all the creators. Raffi, look what you're doing. You're going to kill off all these people trying to like get a few pennies for their like rare language data. All right, so that's the model layer.
Yeah.
How does Mozilla get us to open source models?
So I think what we can do is fund a bunch of that work. And so like, I think we don't have enough money to create our own open source
Well, you're
model.
going to fund it. Google is going to pay you to be the default search engine in Firefox. You're going to take that money to fund a bunch of open source AI.
Well, also remember, Mozilla doesn't have to do all this work ourselves.
Yeah.
I think like a lot of people are actually looking for the right solution. And what I'm trying to do is signpost for them of just like, we want to go put money behind. I'm not saying we've done this yet, but like I want to put money behind someone like an AI2 or an ETH Zurich, or there's a new company in California that's trying to do open source models. I want to put money behind them as a signaling process of just like, we think this is where the money should go. Others come join us and help us.
Let's talk about open source AI for a little bit, because we're talking about it as though it's this unambiguously good thing. And it's kind of controversial because if you give this powerful AI, if you had a fully adaptable open source AI model that anybody could do anything with, well, then the bad guys can. And also think about it from the developer perspective, right? So we're recently had this big fight between Anthropic and the Pentagon. Anthropic's position is you should not be able to use our AI model to make autonomous killing machines or mass surveillance of Americans. And the Defense Department said, no, we want to use it for whatever we want to use it for. We make the decisions. Anthropic said, okay, we're done with the deal. If Anthropic was open source, you don't even have this negotiation. Anthropic has no leverage. Anybody can do anything with it. You can go take and do mass surveillance on anybody you want, right? In fact, if you made an open source model that was as powerful as Anthropic is, if you succeeded in what you wanted, would you not be enabling anybody to do a mass surveillance system based on AI or build an autonomous killing machine?
The question for me is like, can we have visibility into what's going on? So I think that like, it is unambiguously true that all that stuff is probably happening right now. I mean, the problem is that technology is not neutral in the general form. Like, we've had this same conversation when it's come to biology. We've had the same conversation when it's come to encryption, right? Like, these technologies can be used in multiple different ways. The question for me, though, is just like, can I see what's actually going on? And I think that open source is going to be a way to actually understand what's going on in these systems, understand what people are training them to do, understand how they're being used. I mean, I think the cybersecurity people would say the same thing of just like, we open source, or we at least do open science on all the malware we see on the internet so we can build the proper defenses on the internet.
All right, so explain to the listeners, there's two worlds we can head down. You get to choose one or the other, Raffi, and explain what's better. One, Dario Amodei builds Anthropic. Let's say it wins. I'm not saying it's going to win. I'm just saying this is a hypothetical scenario. It wins. It's the most powerful model. And he kind of makes the decisions on what it can be used for and what it can't be used for. And he has his own ethical code. He's tried to train it on like more textbooks and fewer serial killer letters. Like he's done his best to make it as ethical as possible, even though he knows there are problems. Second world, everybody has access to the same power and the same machines. And we have visibility, right? We can see what it's trained on. And if somebody wants to tell us what they've used, we can kind of see it. But it's also the case that like psycho killer, wherever they are, can go take a model, post-train it, feed it whatever it wants. We're not going to know what they're doing in their lab with the dark curtains on it. And why is that world better?
I want to live in a world where it's not 7 people making decisions for the rest of us in the grand scheme of things. So I think that like in a world of trade-offs, I think that like relying on 7 people to be altruistic all the time and try to keep all our best interests in heart across the world, that seems like an untenable situation. I want communities to be able to make their own decision. I want countries to be able to make their own decisions. Like, I'm not necessarily saying we need to open source every single possible model there is in the world. Like, just in the same way that like not every single part of the internet is open sourced right now, but the foundations that power it all then enable people to go do whatever they want with it. I think that's the world I want to live in.
But now the folks who work at, some of these companies would say, I mean, that's a great ideal, but like the potential power of AI is immense. Right now, it's pretty powerful, right? But soon AI is going to be inventing AI, and like these are the worst models we're ever going to see. We don't give everybody a nuclear bomb, right? Because we know that there's some irresponsible people who will take that nuclear bomb and do bad things with it. We limit the number of nuclear bombs to probably like 7 people, right? So is there a parallel there?
I mean, I think there is a parallel there, but I think like we're not even having the conversation right now in the grand scheme of things. Like in the grand scheme of things right now, it is 7 people-ish that control the fate of all of us on all this powerful technology that might change us all. And so like I at least want to force the conversation so we can have it in the open. It seems like every single person should have some voice into how this technology is going to impact their lives, their livelihood, their relationships, etc. Right now, we're not even doing that.
And you're not satisfied. I mean, there are some pretty powerful open source AI models. There's DeepSeek, there's Qwen. Isn't that good enough?
So like, I think that we need to have this conversation with Western companies. We need to have this conversation like how we're all developing it, because I do think that like in a lot of ways, let's go back to the kidney donation example, like values are getting exported through software. And look, I'm not faulting them for it. Like their fiduciary job is to make as much money as they can. Their fiduciary job is to keep their employees employed. So like, I'm not by any means faulting them for decisions that they're making. All I'm saying is that things like Firefox forced a credible alternative and changed the conversation. Things like Signal changed the way that like Apple and others do end-to-end encryption on messaging. We just need something similar to that.
Talking about forcing open source AI, why don't you change Firefox so that it's really hard to access ChatGPT or Claude, and in fact, the default AI model is Qwen?
So right now, if you...
Or whatever, GPT-OSS.
GPT-4 OSS. Right now, if you use Firefox, there is actually a way to turn on and off different generative AI modes. So you can actually, there's a whole preference pane that allows you to do that. We've been trying to be friendly with our community of understanding like what they want with AI, what they don't want with AI.
I saw some of those Reddit threads. Feisty, man.
Well, I mean,
our
users are rabid in a best possible way. So I think my job, and I think Firefox's job, is to like be responsive to that community, but also lead them through this moment of just like, how do we provide you the tools to help you navigate through it? So like we could go do that. Like I don't think our position will ever be to like screw directly with a website.
No, but you can just make the default. When somebody types in, ChatGPT or Claude.ai, you could say, would you like to use an open source alternative? Like you can nudge.
Yeah, 100%. And so like we've been experimenting.
Not that you should do that. I'm not advocating that.
We've been experimenting with different ways to do AI. So if you go to download Firefox nightly, which I don't recommend most people do, there's always bugs in the nightly builds, but you can see the different types of experiments that we've been doing with AI. And yeah, some of them plug into open source models, some of them do an integration with Anthropic, some of them do like we are trying to gambit at different things to try to figure out what's the best way to present this to users.
Explain the off button in AI, which is one of the strangest settings I've ever seen in a product, right? So you go into Firefox, you click on settings, and it's like, would you like to turn off AI? What does it mean? And like, why did you put it there?
Well, I mean, some users are not happy with the direction that AI is going in. Like, if you think I'm not happy.
So, I mean, people hate AI.
Yeah, if you think I'm not happy, there are some users who are like seriously not happy. So we're just trying to be responsive to our users. So like if you go to some different generative AI sites or go to all these other things, we might be shutting off that functionality from running inside the browser.
If I go to Twitter, will it turn off the AI slop?
I wish that were true. That would be amazing.
That would be amazing. That's the killer feature.
That would be amazing. But the thing that I'm really trying to explore is like, how do we build products that are on the user side that still make use of these type of technologies? Like, what is a better browsing experience? Because like, this is the first year, or last year was the first year that Google search queries took a dent, not a dip, but a dent. And, correlation causation is probably these chatbots that are doing it. So like, none of those chatbots are on your side. How do we start experimenting with different interfaces that could be on your side in that world?
I feel like you spend 96% of your time trying to make AI better and open source AI, and then 4% of your time trying to stop AI in Mozilla, or not you, but I mean like Mozilla, right? Like turning off AI is pretty dramatic.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's being reactionary to our community and reactionary to our users. Like they're asking us for that. And so I think like in some ways, both we need to respond to that and we need to lead them through it. And we need to provide these other alternatives.
All right. So now fourth part is open source hardware, right? And so we talked about open sourcing developer tools. We talked about opening up data. We talked about open sourcing models. And now you have this kind of wild idea that should be open source hardware?
Well, so let's be specific. Right now, in the compute part of my stack, like we're in a scarcity, not abundance when it comes to compute, right? Like you have a chokehold by mostly one corporation, but that one corporation is then banked by people who make semiconductors and stuff like that. So like they're providing one set of hardware, and we built an entire infrastructure, an entire economy based on this one set of infrastructure and hardware. Like transformer models basically fed the way NVIDIA makes GPUs. GPUs then feed the way you make transformer models, and the circle keeps on going around. And I want to live in a world where we get to abundance when it comes to compute, not scarcity.
Okay.
And so I think the way we do that is eventually we get to open source, but we can even start with just having a diversity of companies that are providing computing resources. So like there's a company in Paris right now that builds ways to take models and recompile them for different architectures. So compile them for an AMD instead of NVIDIA, compile them for a CPU instead of a GPU. So like just being able to unlock it on that realm is super interesting. And also if you look at enterprise GPU usage, something like 70%-ish of GPUs in enterprise cases sit unused right now. So like they're just locked behind firewalls and locked behind boxes. Could there be ways for us to like open that up? What's the SETI at home model when it comes to GPUs? Because that could change things.
Listen to you, I feel like you should go work for like in competition policy for like the federal government. Do you think things are, from the sort of this general question of how to having a competitive AI system that we are in control of and that's relatively open, are we going in the right direction or the wrong direction?
I think right now we're going in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
I do think we're in a moment right now where in 2026, we might be able to change.
So the Trump administration, interestingly, is more pro-open source than the Biden administration was.
I agree with that. I agree with that statement. That's super interesting to know. But again, these companies still have a lot of money behind them. So if we were to talk about, there's a few things going on this year that I think might change things. So one is that these smaller models are turning out to be just as performant as large models for certain use cases. There was a lot of academic work on this last year. A good example of it this year would be that I don't need a Claude-sized model to do coding. I can do it with a model that can literally fit on a MacBook. And so like I think that we can find these smaller models that can do the work, and then we can then start shifting that dynamic.
But wait, isn't the opposite argument also true? Like, maybe you can do it, but like, I don't know, something 5% better. You want your code not to be brittle. You want it to last. It's so valuable. The models are so inexpensive. Like, if Claude is 5% better, wouldn't you want to use it for
100%. But I think that like, I think these model gaps are closing. So I think in a world that like we were 2 years behind on open source models, I think we're less than a year behind on open source model quality when it comes to certain use cases. And I agree that 5% is a big difference. However, is that 5%, Pinterest made this argument last year. They saved $10 million by moving to open models instead of closed platforms on their data centers. There's an economist named Frank Nagel at Harvard, which is making an argument that something like 25 billion is being wasted on closed models versus open models. So I think you can factor that into an economic argument. But yes, like on a purist sense, of course I want the best. But at the same time, we all know that like don't let perfection be the enemy of good enough.
When will there be a major American-based open source company?
I think they're starting now. I think there are a bunch of companies like now looking at making open source models. I think Mozilla AI is an example of a company that's trying to do open source developer tooling. I think that people like Databricks are doing portions of their stack as open source. I think this is happening already.
You were the head of self-driving at Uber.
Sure.
You know a lot about self-driving.
Sure.
You have a Tesla.
Had a Tesla.
You had a Tesla. You were in full self-driving mode. We know the end of the story is good because you're here with us, but what happened?
So I was driving through a neighborhood in my hometown back in the Bay Area. My kids were in the back seat. We're heading to one of my sons had a Boy Scout meeting. I was engaged in self-driving mode on a local road. The details here are hazy, but from what I remember is that we were making a turn. The wheel jerks in a weird direction, jerks back in a weird direction. The car decelerates in a funny way. And I tried to take over. And we slam into a concrete wall at over 30 miles an hour.
And your kids are fine too. Everybody's fine.
Yeah, I mean, my son was a little traumatized by it, unsurprisingly, but thankfully we're all fine.
Should you not have tried to take over?
It's a good question. But I think that actually gets to the impossibility of the situation. And so like for me, like the car is doing something weird. I don't actually remember if it was alerting or not at the time. It was just doing something weird.
Right.
And so like I had to switch out of being a semi-passive passenger, which I know I'm saying that phrase and so many people are going to say you're not a semi-passive passenger, but you know, this car has trained me to become a semi-passive passenger.
Right. But you weren't like watching a movie or checking your phone.
No,
You're just like you're doing the way everybody does self-driving, where you're kind of looking,
like you're kind of sitting there, you're kind of just
like
paying
looking
attention,
back and talking to your kids.
Yeah, I mean,
like
one of the things I would have said to my wife before this happened is like one of the things I love about self-driving mode on highways is I can look out my window more often. Like I can just look around in ways that I probably couldn't if I had to be attention full time. So whether I should have taken over, I don't know. I know I tried to take over. And in that process, something went wrong. It might have been me. It might have been the car. I'm not actually blaming the software. What's going wrong, in my opinion, is that like you have a fraction of a second to make a decision and move from passive to active. And that's a broken scenario, in my opinion.
So what is the lesson?
I think the way that we're building these AI systems to lure us into passivity is probably a bad thing. So like my car trained me to be a passive driver mile after mile after mile. My AI bot, my chat bot is training me to be it over emails, over documents. Like at some point, do I know whether it's me or do I know it's a chat bot? And I think that's not a good thing. Like the thing I'm actually really worried about, if you're asking me about, am I an existential doomer? I'm not an existential doomer. I actually love this technology, but I worry that we're going to become like those fat people in WALL-E, that we're just like sitting there and the world is going by and then we've lost our humanity in the process. That for me is the thing that comes out of that.
All right, so how do you then hold on to the humanity? Like probably you should never have turned on self-driving to begin with.
If I knew for a fact that self-driving works 100% of the time, then sure, you should turn on self-driving. In fact, like that's the world I was trying to go for at Uber. In fact,
but isn't that the WALL-E world?
But you can imagine like a lot of my like Twitter world and my Uber world is like start with naivete and then get into the realism. And so like the Uber world, what I really wanted is if we can get to 100% self-driving, I can do so many other things while in the car, right? Like I could live in Yosemite and commute to San Francisco every day because I could be productive while in the car. But the problem with these systems is that they're like 99.9% accurate. And that's an impossible situation for a human to be in. Because like a system that's like 100% accurate is great. A system that's 0% accurate is my control. 99.9. Like,
well, 99 is fine, but for like an email or like a PowerPoint memo, right? But not for...
Maybe. I mean, like...
I guess it depends on the email.
Exactly. I mean, so like 99.9 might not be true in a case of like a lawyer who's making a legal brief. Like you want that to be 100%, otherwise you're disbarred and your client might go to jail. So like, I don't know.
Right. So the lesson, though, is to be aware. At the very least, one lesson would be aware of when you're being turned passive in a way that is against your interests.
And I think we need to figure out how to build architecturally better systems. Because I think that, like, you know, you could say, Raffi, it's your fault. Like there's a disclaimer when you bought the car being like, don't be complacent. But that expression you just gave me is exactly the problem.
Of course.
I was like, we need to fix that.
You had to buy a new car. What kind of car did you buy?
I have not bought a new car yet. In fact, I'm gone back to my 12-year-old Subaru Outback for a while until I figure this one out.
So when you buy a new car, will that car be a Tesla?
It will almost certainly not be a Tesla. I don't think that model... Or if it is a Tesla, let me rephrase it. If it is a Tesla, I won't be getting FSD on it.
When do you think you'll use self-driving again?
Well, I get into Waymos. I still get into Waymos all the time. And I think Waymos are a different situation, right? Waymos are designed that no one's in the front seat monitoring it.
Yeah.
And so I love a Waymo. It's great. But like in a world where like you're putting some of the onus on me as the driver, I don't know if I'm turning on that autopilot.
When will AI be able to write a story about, I don't know, whatever happened in the markets at the quality of a New York Times story?
I think we're single-digit years away from that, like in a grand scheme of things.
Single-digit, like small single digits?
Small single-digit years away from that. I think that like right now, like the number of times I'm fooled by an AI story showing up these days is increasing.
Is there anything that humans can do mentally that AI will not be able to do in single-digit number of years?
Well, I mean, so I think about this a lot when it comes to music, for example. Like, if you trained a model on all the music until 1950, will it create punk rock?
Yeah.
Right now, the answer is probably no. I mean, someone should try this, right? Like music got more and more complex as we went into the 1950s. And like punk rock got simple all of a sudden. And that's the creative leap. And so like right now, I don't think a model will make that creative leap, but I haven't tried this for sure. So don't quote me.
Wait, that's interesting. Do you think it could go from like jazz to like modal jazz to free jazz where it's getting more complex as you get to 1960?
Well, because like I think there was a trend there that it can then continue to extrapolate the trend. But creativity in some ways to come off that trend. I don't know the answer, but all I'm saying is right now, if you took current generation technology and did that model thing, I don't think punk rock is what comes out.
How long until your coding skills are totally obsolete?
My coding skills are totally obsolete right now. Like, I mean, like, I think like, I don't remember. It's been, I mean, November was a game changer for all of us, right? Claude Code started outputting code that was significantly better than a lot of engineers could write code. I don't think I've personally written like an actual line of code since that point.
So your skill is just managing your Claude code agents.
Yeah, I've somewhat become like a weird HR for agents, but I will say like my job
But
there.
do you think you're better at it because you were a good coder?
Yes. Right. So I do think that my skill of like, I can think about architecture, I can think about composability, I can think about testing. Like I think about this a lot. My son has been asking me recently, he wants to learn to code.
Yeah.
And so I've been having an argument of just like, what do I teach him? Like he's like, I want to learn Python. I'm like, maybe we should learn Lisp. Like Lisp is like completely useless as a language, but it'll give you higher level thought in the same way Latin is kind of useless.
Yeah.
Of just like, you learn Latin for a reason because it makes Italian a lot easier. You can be an opera singer. Like, so like maybe I need to teach you this in order to get to that.
What else do you tell your kids to learn about AI?
I mean, for me, it's a lot of questions just around like what does it mean for you to learn?
Yeah.
So like for like my son, like I want him to struggle.
And how old are your kids?
They're 10 and 12 right now. I want them to struggle. I want them to like learn what it is to fail, because it's like in those failures, I think it's like what you pick up and that's growth in my opinion. So for them, I talk to them a lot about like, it's okay to take a wild swing for something and for it not to work, because that's what I mean to learn.
Right. Well, you can tell them all about the company we started.
Yeah, you're talking about speakeasy all the time.
You guys, here, come look at some of the prototypes we built for Narwhal. Wild swing. All right, last question for you. If you had unlimited funding, you could fund one thing in AI, what would it be?
I would probably be working at the model layer right now. Like I would probably try to figure out like this creativity question, but I would want to do it in a way that like it's not edging and boxing us all out. I wanted to be part of the human conversation. Like, because I think that like I want that personal AGI that's not only like on my side, but it's also funny. It's also amusing, but it's also enhancing my life, not sort of detracting from it. I think that's the thing I would go.
So you would fund a company that does that and tries to build that and figure that out?
Yeah, I'd probably do that.
All right, great. Raffi Krikorian, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I always loved speaking with Raffi. One thing that I'm still thinking about, open source software sounds great, but how do you pay for it? Right now, lots of open source projects collect donations, and that's great, but that doesn't scale into the billions. So if you truly want to compete with a tech giant, do you need some other form of funding? Does the state need to come in and subsidize you? Let me know what you think in the comments. And be sure to subscribe to this channel for more great conversations.